Made all of this happen from my standpoint, and I have to let him give us a welcome. It's all yours, Scott.
All right, thanks, Trent. So I'm not a public speaker, so bear with me here. But welcome to the 128th Pembina County Fair. So we are the longest continuous running fair in North Dakota. So yeah, 128 years. And welcome the Arise Tour. Thanks for Trent and the crew for coming. And like Trent said, the youth. So I get asked a lot, Scott, why are you on the fair board? Why do you want to be the president? I've been the president for 2 years now. I've been on the fair board for I'm not sure how long. Why? Because of the youth. That's why we do it. I was in 4-H all my career. I've been a 4-H leader. And now my kids have all gone through 4-H. And I'm on the fair board. And it's our youth. That's our future. Not a lot of rural area gets a voice anymore, and we've definitely noticed that in the last year or two. So we're out here to try to get these kids. 4-H is a great program. They have lots of any program for any kid. I was always involved in livestock. And if you're around, go out to the barns, go into the 4-H building, look at the kids' projects. They didn't do that yesterday. They didn't start on it yesterday. You know, they started on it months and months ago. And this is their time to show what they did. This is their big thing of the summer. This is what they get to do. So take time. If you see those kids, tell them what a great job they've done. You go into the static barn, which is just down right here. Look at the amazing projects these kids have done. If you go around the corner, you'll see the livestock barns. Check out their livestock. It's, like I said, you didn't put a halter on a steer yesterday and bring it to the fair. All the work they've done. So give these kids a round of applause for what they do. And like Trent said, we've been talking for over a year, and we finally able to get him here. He's going to work with these kids tomorrow. He's going to judge the livestock. He's going to take time out of his schedule for the kids. So, and then he's got to get in a car and go real fast to the next spot. So, so that's what I've got. And I'll hand it back to Trent here.
Thank you, Scott. All right, King, come on. That almost sounded like a dog call. King, would you join me, please, on stage? All right, King Hangman is going to join us. His assignment was to go get 50 exhibitors and bring them up on stage. Look at those two. I think they want to join you. Are they exhibitors? Yeah, come on up here. Come on. We're going to get peer pressure on you. Get up here. Faith, come on. Let's go. The rest of you young ladies, come on up here. King needs some support. This is about the 4-H, and while they're making their way up here, King's going to be the spokesperson. Come on over here so we can get you a good inspection. Come on, guys. Come on. All right. So, you know, the last year and a half has brought about a lot of challenges for every family, for every community. But I'm very passionate about what's happening at this fair and what happens in youth livestock projects all around this country, because it teaches work ethic, it teaches responsibility, it teaches young men and women to stand up here on stage and give a speech like King's about to do. But honestly, in the last year and a half, there's been a big shift. And that shift has occurred because the traditional government-sponsored programs like Extension that we relied on to put these programs together hasn't been there for us. And that's all fine and dandy. Because what has happened is individuals within communities have reached out and they said, you know what, whether Extension does this or not, we are not going to rob these kids of an opportunity to be a part of this. You know, Scott just kind of touched on it, but I got my very first picture this morning, King. I'm sure you've had this happen. Because our girls, we've got 2 girls, and Tom, believe it or not, I have a girl with 2 Herefords with halters on them, and another one with a white kind of a steer. And this morning, my first picture was these 3 show animals that were out in the pasture, and they should never be in the pasture. They should be either tied in the barn in the day under a fan, or they should be out in a spot. You ever had show calves get away when they weren't supposed to out in a big area?
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
No, you haven't, King, or you would point blank remember. Yeah, that was a bad deal. But anyway, you know, these kids, they catch these calves every morning, I'm just using the calves as an example because the kids with pigs and goats do the same amount of work. They work with them every day. They walk them. Some cases they walk. You got pigs, King?
Yep.
How far you walked your pig every day before you came?
I
I know what you're going to tell me, Rebecca. I'm going to get out of the way of the flag. Thank you very much.
don't know. Probably, I'd say every day, probably 100 some yards.
Okay. And every day. And what are you doing when you walk that pig?
Just trying to train them better for the showcase.
Developing a relationship with that pig so that when you get in the showcase, the judge is going to see you got control of the pig.
Yep.
Are you going to prove to that judge tomorrow you have done that? I just realized I set myself up for a bad situation.
Yep. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did. All right. So anyway, I'm just trying to explain what Scott was talking about in terms of work ethic. Now, for a very good reason, you're each going to tell me your name and what animals you have at the fair, or what project. Maybe it's not an animal.
I'm Kylie Archie, and I have cows and pigs.
Okay. What's your favorite?
Cows.
All right.
Faith Archie, cows and pigs.
All right.
Wyatt Larson, cows and pigs.
What was the first name? Weil?
Wyatt.
Why? Wyatt. Thank you, Wyatt.
Ty Thorlickson, and I have cows and pigs.
Everybody's got cows and pigs.
Johnny Robinson and cows and pigs.
King, where are the kids with goats?
I think they all ran away.
They all ran away. We got to stay over here because that lady with the camera, she's really mean. Okay. I will pay for that too, King. I'm not doing so well. I'm 0 for 2 at this situation. So you, as an 8th grader, have been presented with a lot of challenges in the past year, as we all have. What's your outlook today moving forward as far as the country?
I'd say just work hard every day, and if you work hard enough at it, you can accomplish what you want.
What have you learned as a result of some of this induced stress that you hadn't thought about before the last year and a half?
I've learned that sometimes it just gets too much.
And then what do you do?
Shoot guns.
Perfect. Stay over here. Well, maybe you should go hide behind the flag. You be proud of that. I'm pulling you and pushing you around, King. Absolutely. You be proud of that. But how about them? How about that couple sitting right there, that lady holding that phone up? Has the last year and a half and the challenges changed anything for you about relationships?
It's just made them stronger, I guess,
And why is that?
because you got to get through some tough stuff, and then you kind of get to the easy, relaxed part.
So community and relationships and family have become more important.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about for the future of the United States or Pembina County?
I'd say just the development of farms getting stronger, bigger, and more successful.
What's your number one concern?
A bad crop year.
That's an 8th grader that puts it all into context on what's really important for sustainability. And this is exactly what we're talking about and why we go to all this effort. And by the way, all this fair stuff that takes place, it's 100% done by volunteers like Scott and Amber and all the families who just said, we want to make sure that we have our kids with every opportunity possible. All right, King, this is going to be the last question I ask you. What do you want people to most know as they go home today?
Just kind of like I said earlier, if you just work hard enough and you have a dream that you want to accomplish, you will accomplish that dream.
Ladies and gentlemen, the young people, Pembina County, North Dakota, thank you. And your favorite animal to hunt?
Cows.
Your favorite animal to hunt?
Oh, deer.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Faith. I won't pick on you anymore. Wow. I mean, this has just been my life. Obviously, I grew up in this environment. This is all I've known my entire life. And if nothing else, tonight, I mean, realize the people that are here are in tune with what it takes to raise kids and the work ethic and the responsibility. But that message, if we can somehow take that message that we just witnessed and share that with every corner of not only the United States, but the planet, because in all honesty, the biggest challenge that we have going forward is the failed work ethic. You cannot go to a town, you can't go to a business where they're not trying to hire you if you buy a cup of coffee. It's like if you can functionally go over and pull the thing and fill your cup with coffee, they think you're qualified to work there because nobody wants to work. You'll never see that with these kids right here because they are learning work ethic at every step of the way. And let me tell you what, there's nothing more important than what we're doing today in this world. With that said, that's the perfect way to introduce my next speaker. She's been a longtime friend. Judy Estherson, come on up here. I'm going to call her a patriot. Back in the day, Judy and I were in some real dog fights. She decided she was no longer going to take this setting down. She was going to stand up, get into an elected office, and make a difference. And she failed. Or did she? We'll ask her.
Oh, Trent, and I do go back a ways, and he let me know last night he expected me to speak. So I'm off the cuff because that's what I do the best, off the cuff. Is it, you want it way up there? I think they can hear me. My kids say I talk quite loudly, and I'm always looking for an audience to listen, I guess. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to share today, so I'm really just trusting the Lord to give me the words that you need to hear today, because it's really not about what I have to say. I do have a story. Faith, family, and freedom. What is more important than those three things? So I think faith is number one. Your family certainly comes to be number two. And after God family, what else is left but this great country that we live in and the freedoms that we have? And I think that, you know, the Lord has really showed me how much I love this country in the last few years. I think I took it for granted as a youth. I think that's part of the problem, is that we have lived in this free country and we take it for granted, we assume it. If you go anyplace else, if you just get out of the country a little bit, you learn to recognize how special this country really is. And I'm not sure that I was great at history. I don't think I really cared much about world history, or maybe American government was more interesting to me, but world history not so much. But go to India, go to Mexico, see how people are treated in other countries, see how women are treated in other countries, see what opportunities there are. I came back from India a few years ago. I literally landed with tears in my eyes and wanted to drop down to the ground to kiss this land that I have been so fortunate to have been born into. But I'm going to tell you a little teeny bit about my political expertise. I ran into Trent Luce fighting against a legislation that was about animal protections. And we had at the time we had what we called a PMU line, and I don't know if any of you know what that is. We collected urine from pregnant mares. And we had, PETA people trying to regulate every sort of part of that business. They wanted us to have veterinarians in and on a regular basis, and we were supposed to monitor how much they drank and how much they got exercised, and these people were really crazy nuts about how we treated our animals. And the bottom line is, most of you who come from any sort of agriculture know that people who have animals in agriculture take care of them. They're their livelihood, okay? We take good care of our animals. And so I ended up saying, they wanted my husband to come in and talk, and my husband doesn't talk much. So he said, well, I'm not going to, but my wife will. So that's how I met Trent. So we were in the trenches together against this bill. And, you know, Trent and I had met each other very briefly, and Trent said, I'd like to interview you for my radio program. And I was like, what for? What do you want to talk about, Trent? And he goes, well, I just want to talk to you briefly. And so we did. We sat down the next day, and he asked me all sorts of questions. We were in agriculture. I'm a nurse. I've raised 5 children. If you want to talk about the vaccine, I could talk about that ad nauseum. It's been a rough year for me in healthcare, having to do things I didn't believe in. So that's a whole nother track. But anyway, so when Trent and I had this little interview, I remember so succinctly that one of the things that I said to him was, America is the land of the free and the home of the brave. But if we don't get real brave, we're not going to be real free. And so I think already at that point I recognized that I am the kind of person that is passionate about freedom. I'm passionate about my family. Like he said, it's all about the kids. It's about the next generations. We want them to have the things that we've had. And I'm a worrier. I'm one of those people who just will do what other people just won't do. And I want you to know that it's not just my courage. It's not that I'm just stronger than everybody else. It's just that I really want to be obedient, and I want to do what the Lord asks me to do. And when he says do it, and I'm in the fire, and as long as he's there, just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I will not be burned. And he's just proved that to me over and over again. As long as he's in the fire with me, if he's in the flame with me, I'm not going to be burned. And so we can take our courage from knowing that when we're on the right side of things, when he's asking us to do things, that he will always be there. So anyway, after my meeting up with Trent, I had said this little prayer to the Lord. I said, you know, Lord, I think I could be good at politics. Like really, I mean, like, I think I could. So, like, I kind of like to get involved and, you know, put a stop to some of these regulations and some of these things that are going on in the country that I don't like very well. And so I thought I had in my mind what he might, like, let me do, right? And I said, but I'm not running for office unless somebody asks me to, okay? I'm not just going to go out there and do something without you, but if somebody asks me to, then I will. So I had an idea of what somebody might ask me to do, but that wasn't it. They didn't ask me, okay? I didn't get asked to run for this office I thought I might like, okay? I got asked to run against an incumbent Republican ag commissioner. Me. I laughed. When they called me up, they had heard me testify about how I thought animal rights wasn't a good idea. And so they called me up and said, we'd like you to run. And I laughed and I said, that is so funny. That is so funny. And they said, no, Judy, really, we're serious. And I said, well, if you want to buy me dinner, I'll listen and be entertained. But, you know, I don't think so. So I met up with these guys. They told me all the reasons they thought I should be the next ag commissioner. I laughed, I enjoyed the dinner, and I went home. I thought, that is the funniest thing I've ever heard. And then I thought, did you tell the Lord that if you were going to run for office, somebody would ask you? I don't really want to run for that. I don't want to run at all. I mean, for Pete's sake, who runs against an incumbent Republican when you're a Republican? I mean, like, I'm not even in politics. I'm smarter than that. Like, I know better than that. Really? Why would I do that? And then the Lord just wouldn't leave me alone about it. And so I ran. And you know what? I lost. Did I find out a lot about politics? Did I find out people aren't always nice even if you're a Republican? Wow. But you know what? I finished really strong. The Lord is with me every single bit of the time. And when I stood up at the podium and gave my concession speech, because they'd all decided they were voting for the incumbent before they even met me, I could say, I have finished the race. And you know, there was times I'd say, I don't know what you had me do that for. How come you had me do that? Just to lose? For Pete's sakes. Who likes to lose, right? I know I'm not a loser. Lord was with me. I finished strong. People were shocked that I could even do it, that I even did it. But it was good, and I learned a lot. And I got more and more involved in my district, and I got more and more involved. I knew more things about what was going on in our state. It's disappointing. I just hate to tell you it's disappointing because we're the North Dakota nice. Sorry, North Dakota ain't nicer than anybody else when it comes to politics. So then I ran for the Senate. Again, I ran against an incumbent, Democrat, who was the minority leader. People liked her. People liked her in my district. And you know what? I lost again. But I finished the race. And I don't know exactly why or what has occurred because of my obedience. But you know, I started doing a Bible study a few weeks ago, and the name of it was Be Courageous. So my message to you tonight is be courageous, because we need some real courage in these days to hope and pray that this country can arise and make a difference in our children's lives. If we want the freedom that we grew up with for our children, we're going to have to be very courageous. And as I started this study, I did the first week and I thought, you know, Lord, I think I've lost my courage. And it was just really, because it was such a rough year. It was a rough year to watch the things happen in the United States. It was a rough year to watch people just sit down and mask up and do what they were being told to do. My own family were like, you know, Mom, can't you just go along? Can't you just go along? No, I can't. My youngest daughter said to me one day, she says, you know, Mom, she says, have you ever thought that maybe when somebody said something that you didn't agree with, that you could just go, mm-hmm. And I said, no. How can you do that? That's a lie. That's like deception. That's not even, I mean, like, I don't understand how I could have raised you. Come on, I raised you better than that. Stand up. Stand up for what you believe. You know, from the very beginning, I knew all those masks were a big joke. Nobody in medicine had ever worn masks like that for nothing, for no symptoms. Nobody ever thought that you could ever spread anything because you were asymptomatic. If that isn't the biggest bogus bullshit, I don't know what is. And the fact that I had to live in that healthcare setting listening to all this crap, it's fakery, fake news, fake. So be courageous. I've gotten my courage back. I don't know what the Lord's going to ask me to do next, but be listening because He needs you. He needs every single one of you to do something, whether it's just stand up and tell the truth or whether it's to get involved in something bigger than you. Politics, maybe running for office. Maybe it's not the things I've run for. Maybe it's your city commission. Maybe it's your county. Maybe it's your school board. Now that's someplace you better get involved if you've got children. Or maybe you don't even want them in the public school setting. Maybe you're going to homeschool. And you know, 20 years ago when my kids were little and I thought I should homeschool, I was trying to support a husband who worked 80 hours a week. I was trying to work my part-time nursing job. And I was trying to raise 5 kids. And I just thought, I cannot. Even then, I think I knew I should. But I just thought, I cannot. Don't buy into the lies. Do what's best for your kids. They're the most prized and precious commodity you will ever invest in. Nothing you do in your life will be more important than what you do for your kids. Not a single thing. So invest in them. They're going to be lost if they don't learn what these kids are learning in 4-H. To work hard. My kids did learn to work hard. Their dad worked hard all the time, and so did their mom. And they know there is nothing else but to work hard and get after what you want and believe that you can still achieve it. And critical race theory and the things they're teaching kids in the public schools may not be in North Dakota yet. I don't know because I'm not involved anymore. My children are all grown up. But you better know. You better know, because you know what comes for them elsewhere usually ends up here in North Dakota. Good old North Dakota has the same problems. Your kids will be taught things because you're too busy to know what they're being taught. And then you'll sit there and you'll look at them as adults and say, seriously, you believe that? And I sent all my kids to the university where they got this horrifyingly liberal agenda taught to them. And, you know, I have to really combat that. But you know what? The truth is the truth. Teach your children the truth. It's faith. It's God. It's your family. And then it's your freedom. Because once you lose your freedom, all those other great things just go away. So I think that's my message for tonight. Trent knows I could probably ramble on forever, ad lib, ad nauseum, but that's my message. I asked him what he wanted me to speak about. He kind of said my political things. Threw in a little extra to that, and I hope that encouraged you, because it's really all about encouraging each other to be brave, be courageous, but don't do it on your own. Do it with the Lord, because that is something to behold.
When she got here, she said she had nothing to say. That's fake news too. But what she doesn't know is that I hope she packed a bag, because her butt's going to be on that bus for the next 2 months. Judy Estherson, all right, thank you. I mean, that just summarized everything that we've been talking about for 2 months, because it is at the core of what we need. We have learned that there's really nothing more important that we're doing than just sharing with one another and giving people the confidence to stand up for the truth in our communities, because the community has been fractured. And we have a serious problem in North Dakota and Nebraska and all of these great conservative states and what's going on in the school system. Just yesterday, I don't know if you caught Dakota Trails and Tales on KFAR last night. Excuse me, I had my governor, Pete Ricketts from Nebraska, who is taking on the Nebraska Association of School Boards, because they're starting a curriculum of teaching sex education to first graders. And they're working up to where by the time that they're in 7th grade, they're teaching them all types of sex education, oral sex, and all types of things that these kids should never be taught in school. They should be learning history. They should be learning about science instead of being told to wear a mask, even though the science department proves that we've gained nothing, like Judy just said, by wearing a mask. And are we showing up at the school board meetings? Are we talking to the superintendents and asking them, what is going on with this curriculum? Now, in case you don't know what they're using that urine for, she kind of stopped at that story. I wanted to just take that to a next level. You know why we used to collect horse urine? They extract the estrogen out of the horse urine, put it in birth control pills, and you ladies consume it on a daily basis. Isn't that cool? But it's part of, Nate, you know what? They shut down all the PMU lines, and now they synthesize it and produce an estrogen-acting product that does what to us? We don't know, because we've moved too far away from the basics and really getting back to the root. We are on this tour because this guy sitting right here in a hat that he actually looks a lot better in than I ever thought he would before he got it in Ogden, Utah. He's sitting in his basement for far too long, and he realized he had to come out. That didn't maybe sound exactly like I meant it, Robert, but he came out of his basement to go put on a tour. And he realized and had the intuitiveness to say that we can't just expect people to come to us. We have to go to people. And that's why we are on a tour that's 117 days long, 90 stops in 48 states. And the man who had the vision, and probably, I think everybody on this tour, in fact, I talked to J.C. Cole today in New Jersey. He said, Robert David Steele's the only guy that could have had this vision and then found a way to bring it to fruition. And that's why we are here in Hamilton, North Dakota, because Robert David Steele said, we're going to go do this. And I really would like to know why he packs a pig with him all the time.
Well, I can see I'm not in cowboy country, so I'm going to set my hat here. But, well, it's ball cap country. I guess y'all drive tractors, and what I found out is in confined spaces, the hat gets in the way. I'm honored to be here. I'm a former spy, so I'll start with the good news. We have every email, every text, every game chat, and every banking transaction, not just for every traitor, elite pedophile, and Wall Street criminal, but for every federal, state, and local official that has stabbed you in the back because they've accepted being bribed or blackmailed by the 1%. And I'm going to end today, or I'm going to start right now with my punchline. This is a God thing. I'm technically unemployed on Social Security, and I'm no longer living in my wife's basement. I've packed out because I'm not sure what God has for me to do. But this is day 62 of my being on a coach. And I'm sleeping on the coach to save money, and frankly, it scares me. I'm getting to like it. I've become a road dog. And I got to tell you, the videos that we're making, including the video of the speaker right before me, they're going to change America. These videos are going to change America. Because what we're really doing by coming out to all of you is we're bringing you together. Now, I was a Republican, and then I was a Libertarian. And then I went on the road with Dr. Cynthia McKinney, the black congresswoman from Georgia. This is a woman who has giant balls, okay? She was a 6-term congresswoman, and in her first term, she went to the Ku Klux Klan in Georgia and said, boys, you're my constituents. What can I do for you? I mean, we're talking serious balls here. But I took a tour with her in 2017 in an RV with a staffer, and we drove across the country. One of the things she said to me, she said, Robert, you know all the bad things that are happening to white people now? They did them to black people first. And, of course, we were on an Indian reservation, and now I know we also did them to Native Americans first. We've been genociding Native Americans, blacks, and whites. Abortion is not an accident. It's by design. Vaccines that depopulate black people are by design. My motto is the truth at any cost lowers all other costs. And it's been my great privilege to have had a good education, to have grown up overseas as the son of an oil engineer, to have come back and done university, studied, written an original thesis on predicting revolution. CIA still can't match it. And all of the preconditions of revolution exist today in the United States of America. The two biggest ones are concentration of wealth and loss of authority in the loss of faith in the legitimacy of the government. We're there. We're there. The good news is there's no violence. And the reason there's no violence is because I think God has everything under control. And I'll remind all of you that we deputized 5,000 National Guardsmen as deputy U.S. Marshals, and we have John Bolin, former U.S. Marshal, with us. I don't think we de-deputized those 5,000. deputy U.S. Marshals. I think they've been fanning out across the country, and people have been making deals because we have every email, every text, every game chat, and every banking transaction for everybody who's ever taken a bribe. We have the conversations and the pattern analysis of everybody who has had relations with people who have received money from George Soros and other people like that. Now, the bad news is NSA only processes 1% of what it collects. The good news is we have it all, going back 15 years. And I think President Trump declassified a whole bunch of stuff on the 19th of January. And I have no direct access. I don't work for him. I talked to Juan Osavin. I know Mike Flynn. I know Sidney Powell. But on balance, I think everything is right where it's going to be, and August is going to be a great month in American history. For what it's worth, this tour is changing me, and it's going to make me more valuable to the United States of America going forward. I will also say I'm not in charge of this tour. Trent Luce is. And the greatest gift that God ever gave to this tour was Trent Luce. He has put together a combination of locations and good people in the audience. And I, with some help from Trent and my brother there, Kevin Jenkins, have managed the tour in such a way that we've managed to scrub out all the egos and the prima donnas and the people trying to promote themselves, and we've gotten down to core. We're here to help you help the country come back. And the biggest lesson I've learned is the goodness that is America is best represented here, including that young man that ran out to our bus to tell us where to go. That stuff doesn't happen in the city. In the city, they give you the finger, okay? This fellow represents manhood. He represents goodness. And I was looking at him. I was up in the cab with my lead driver. And I was saying to myself, that's what it ought to be. That is goodness. So you wonder about this pig. Well, first let's start with the glasses. I found these at a truck stop, and I came out wearing them. My entire crew fell on the grass, laughing their ass off. So I decided to keep the glasses. Now, I wrote a book in 2008, Lipstick on the Pig, election 2008, Lipstick on the Pig, and I've spent a lot of time, and in addition to being a former spy, I created the Marine Corps Intelligence Activity, which at the time was our nation's newest intelligence agency. I'm a top nonfiction reviewer. I've done a lot of thinking. I've also done a lot of writing. And at bigbatusa.org, there's a library where you've got a bunch of free things, including my memo to the president, including my lecture on top cosmic mind-altering books. It's a free graduate education, which is understandable, I think, from 15 years on up. We're going through a transformation in America. And I believe we are going to scrub not just the universities, but the churches and the political parties and the labor unions, okay? It's a sad thing, but in America, you don't get to be a leader generally unless you have agreed to be bribed, blackmailed, or brainwashed. And one of the unique things about President Donald Trump is he wasn't on the political class. He was a businessman. And Jack Welch is quoted in Team of Bifers walking out from meeting President Trump. He said, now this is Neutron Jack, General Electric, top business leader in the world. He says, talking to that guy is like talking to a peer. And that's what we need more of. We need more parents on school boards. We need more business people, farmers, cowboys on county commissions. We need to scrub the political class. Now, I'm not going to belabor the three big problems that I've spent the last 15 years focused on, which is election fraud, Wall Street treason and crime, and satanic pedophilia, which is that's the glue that keeps it all together. You can go to bigbatusa.org and see the other websites. We've published books and everything and so forth. So what I want to do now is just end with 6 quick slides, which it may be counterintuitive, but this actually works. This is how you're all being screwed. The federal government is based on income taxes on the working people. And the 1% don't pay taxes. There are no taxes on currency and stock transactions. There are no taxes on internal corporate supply lines and so forth. So what's the answer? The answer is an automated payment transaction tax collected at the county level, plus we forbid the federal government from printing or borrowing money, and we make inflation against the law. Inflation is a tax on everybody. It's a very deliberate way of increasing the wealth of the 1% and decreasing the wealth of the 99%. So there are solutions. And one of the reasons we're focused on constitutional counties is because when you can make the money a county level collection, then the county apportions to the state and the state apportions to the federal government, not the other way around. Okay, so I think there are solutions. One place where Trent and I absolutely come together is any governor that is not ready to tell the federal government to pound sand and go home should not be a governor. It's time we end federal control of state land. And that includes, I don't think the 17th Amendment was ratified properly. I think senators should be representatives of their states, their sovereign states, not the mob. So there are, at Big Bat USA at the library thing, I've got a number of references. One of them is everything I've done on the Constitution. We need to double down on some elements of the Constitution, obviously the First and Second and Fourth Amendments. We need to modify some, and we need to reverse others, including income tax, state senators, and so forth. Now, this is what the two-party tyranny doesn't want you to know. The Democrats control 17% of the voters. The Republicans control 13% of the voters. 20% roughly of the voters are libertarians or independents with no voice or vote to count. Now, here's the bad news. CIA created the artificial intelligence staff around me back in 1986. Not because I was a technical person, but because I was a spy who could knock technical heads together. And I learned a lot. I will absolutely guarantee you that electronic voting machines were created in order to determine the winner before the first vote is cast. I will also tell you, and I know Sidney Powell personally, I got to know her when I wrote the review of her book, License to Lie, which is about federal judges, prosecutors, and others who are basically RICO organizations. I guarantee you Sidney Powell is going to kick Dominion's ass, and we will eventually go back to paper ballots counted publicly on site. So I want to make one quick point here. This tour is a unity tour. This tour is about putting people in politics, not parties. And with all due respect to Republicans who think they're doing well, the Republican Party is just as corrupt as the Democratic Party, and Mitt Romney and Dick Cheney are criminals, Liz Cheney as well. We have got to knock down these two parties and get to people talking to each other and settling their differences, but coming together to understand that self-governance based on the truth is the only way we're going to survive and the only way we're going to prosper. So this tour is actually about uniting the Trumpers, the Sandinistas, the populists of the left. They're not communists, they're not socialists, they're just misguided populists who have been screwed twice by Bernie Sanders in favor of Hillary Clinton. And of course the independents and the libertarians. Now, I was a libertarian. I left the Libertarian Party because the libertarian leadership is not professional. They're not interested in winning elections. They're just interested in keeping their fat paychecks going. But I think there's a lot to the Libertarian Party. And I think if we can all come together, I think we basically, let me give you an example. The League of Women Voters was bribed to give up the presidential debates. Okay? The Republican and Democratic parties took the presidential debates away from the League of Women Voters because they had the temerity to include third, fourth, and fifth parties and to not give the questions in advance. The system is now rigged. Well, I say they were bribed because if I were president of the League of Women Voters, there would be no sex in America until I got the debates back. Okay? So I'm absolutely convinced there was a fix in there. Now, I'm not going to belabor this, but I have spent a lot of time on this. Cynthia McKinney and I have co-authored a book that has been sent toward President Trump and others. These are the 12 things that need to be done. Nobody else in the world, nobody else in the United States of America is serious about election reform except this tour and Cynthia McKinney and myself. And these are the 12 things that need to be done, including paper ballots counted publicly on site and instant runoff. So first, second, and third choices. So you actually get a majority candidate, no money in politics, election day is a holiday, public transport is free because we're prejudiced against poor people who can't get out of work and so forth. So there are answers here, but these answers don't become viable until we all get organized. And I'm huge on organized people beating organized money. So where do we go with this? Now, I paid for this cartoon when I realized that we have a two-party tyranny that fronts for the deep state. As good as the people may be down at the precinct level, let me tell you very clearly, 50% of the Republican precinct seats are vacant. And the Romney criminal relative in charge of the GOP is not allowing those precinct seats to be filled by Trumpers. The GOP is skewed against people who want common sense truth in politics. They are prejudiced against people who want to tell the truth. So where do we go? We go to constitutional counties in faith, family, and freedom. And we bring together the Trumpers, the Sandinistas, the independents, the libertarians, and we mobilize the dropouts. I didn't really speak to it, but 50% of our public has dropped out of politics because they know it's a rigged system, or they've been incentivized to drop out of politics. This whole tour is also about solutions. All these other people out there, nobody else has 4 wrapped buses and the little red school bus, which is just an incredible personal feat, going toward Mount Rushmore and now doing 50 more stops. I realized today this is, I think this is day 67 for me. And we're on our way with the 111 days. We will do a slow roll past Trump at Mar-a-Lago. I'm trying to get Juan Ossoba to get Trump come out for a photo. Now, what I am going to do, and Brother Trent and Brother Kevin have agreed, we're going to create an organization called 99 versus 1. And I have gotten the URLs. I got the URL usa99.org.net and .com, and it was immediately stolen from me by someone in Namecheap. They moved them over and parked them and said, oh, no, you didn't buy these. They're reserved. Well, this time with legal oversight and screenshots, I got 99 versus 1, and it's a God thing. 99 versus 1 is better than USA 99 because it can be expanded to Canada, Australia, and other places down the road. But my focus is on America first. And when I say America first, I don't mean America selfish first. I mean America first and then the rest of the world following our model. So what 99 versus 1 will do, and I have to pay all the bills on this tour first, is it will seek to collect 200 million emails that cannot be monetized or abused. And obviously trust is going to be very important there. But we want to deliver the truth about every issue, any issue, to every person who wants to participate. And then we want to help people organize at the county level, at the school board level, at the ward level. The ward is indeed very, very important. And my objective is to eventually be able to put 100 to 1,000 people into any meeting on any issue at any level overnight. That's organized people defeating organized money. Miss Piggy, by the way, is a ventriloquist. Everything I say comes from her. I think I want to just end by saying how moved and changed I have been by this journey through the heartland that Trent Luce made possible. I'm a different person today. And one of the things I notice is that the internet sucks in the heartland. That's not an accident. They don't want to hear your voice. Now, Ike Eisenhower traveled across the country, and he discovered as a young Army captain we had no roads. So as president, he created the internet, the interstate road system. I don't know where I'm going to end up. Certainly not president. Trent and I have agreed on that. But I might get the open source agency. I might create 99 versus 1. But I make you a personal commitment. For the next 20 years, one of my focuses is going to be on ensuring that the Heartland has full voice, full internet, and that we make America in your image. God bless you all.
Robert David Steele, folks. We do agree he's not going to be president. Thank you, Robert.
I'll be back, but I'll go out and do bills and stuff.
Okay. By the way, we got a bucket somewhere if you want to help feed the pig and pay for a little bit of diesel. There's a bucket that's right over there. Mark's monitoring that. We're going to get John Bolin up here next. He's traveling with us. He's retired. I say he's retired. He's way too young to be retired, but he spent a career in law enforcement. He's from Indiana, started as a deputy sheriff, finished his law enforcement career in the U.S. Marshal system, and then took a little diversion that maybe he'll share with you. But we got to get back to respect. We talk all day and night about the importance of this supreme law of the land. And right now we have people trying to plant seeds of division about the peace officers and the county sheriffs that are responsible for implementing and enforcing that law. And if we don't have respect for those law enforcement officials, we're all in trouble. And that's exactly why John Bolin is traveling with us and dedicated his life to making that happen. John Bolin.
Thank you, Trent. I am very proud of my law enforcement career. I was blessed. I really didn't even plan to get into law enforcement, and I ended up in law enforcement and started my career in 1989 in Morgan County, Indiana. That's one county south of Indianapolis, and had a really good, rewarding career. But what I really want to talk about, I've been sitting back there thinking about it, and after hearing these kids talk and all the other speakers here and the theme, I've never really mentioned my roots up here. I always talk about law enforcement, but prior to that, I was blessed to be a farm kid and to be raised by hard-working, hard-praying parents, and to have the experience of being on a small farm where we had livestock, and as a young kid, I hand-milked a Jersey cow before I went to school, and we raised hogs enough to feed ourselves. It wasn't any kind of a big business. It was what people now, there's this fad coming back around. If you notice, they're calling it homesteading. Well, that's just the way I was raised. We didn't call it homesteading. It was just the way we lived. And so, I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of I've been married for 30 years. My wife's at home taking care of all the animals we have there. We have a Jersey milk cow now. And we have some steers and some hogs there that we raise for ourselves, and 40 or 50 laying hens and big gardens. And she's there taking care of all that. And I have 3 adult children and 2 grandchildren. And my daughter sends me videos of my grandchildren almost daily. And I talked to my granddaughter, Lorelei. She's a little over 3 years old. And I talked to her on the phone the other day, and she said, Papa, she said, when I see you, I'm going to hug you. and that's what it's all about. I mean, that tore me apart. But watching these young kids come up here on this stage, and that young boy, King, I can remember that name. That's a good name. It's a good, strong name. He's sitting right here still. When they came up here, I started to think about what I did after law enforcement is what brought me to this stage today. And what I did was I accepted a job with an organization called the ASPCA. Any of you know what that organization is? If you know what it is, raise your hand. The American Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. One of the groups that attacked her operation and caused Trent to come in and help her fight and to push legislation and safety for farmers and what they do. I went to work for that organization because I had met them through my job as an undercover police officer. I worked undercover for 7 years, near the tail end of my career. And we investigated any kind of gambling enterprise. And some of those gambling enterprises led me to dogfighting and cockfighting. And we were interested in the gambling aspect of it, the organized crime aspect of it. But in doing that, I met folks from these animal rights organizations, and they offered me a lot of money, twice what I was making at the time. And I was getting near a point where I could lock in the time that I had served in law enforcement and wait and draw the money later, and I took the job. But I saw right away what these organizations really were. Up to that point, I thought, well, they're rescuing animals, and they're doing this or doing that, dogs, cats, whatever, the commercials, the sad commercials they put on there to ask for donations. But when I started to see what they really were, I started to speak out against it. At one point, they had me drafting undercover policy and procedures for them. And when I asked some hard questions, we flew to New York City for the meeting, and we're sitting around a table in Manhattan, one of the buildings that the ASPCA owns. And we were having a meeting, and I started asking some serious questions about possible violations of constitutional rights, violations of the Fourth Amendment. And my boss was across the table, and he gave me a look, and I knew right then my days were numbered at that organization. And I began to gather information, because as a good investigator, that's what I do. I saw what this place was, and I began to gather some information. I saved emails and recordings of things that were going on. Really kind of turned the tables on them, because these are the organizations that go into farms and do undercover videos. There's an organization called Mercy for Animals, and I'm naming these organizations hoping that I'm going to get sued eventually by some of them, because that'll just light a fire under me and make me speak louder. But that organization will hire someone and house them in your neighborhood, get them an apartment for an entire year, and they'll go in and apply for a job at a packing house or a farm or wherever, and they'll work undercover there and video what's going on. And eventually I did obviously resign from the ASPCA, and I did not sign a non-disclosure agreement, so I'm the only person that was at that high of a level in one of these animal rights organizations that speaks out freely without being sued. It's been about 3.5, going on 4 years now. That's how I met Trent. I set up a fake Twitter account as a whistleblower against the organization, and Trent caught wind of it, and he started messaging me, and we finally connected, and I went on Rural Route Radio, and it's just history from there. It's just been like a steamroller since then. But my point in saying that, I'm gonna finish with this. Everyone says, "What can I do?" Everyone wants to know what you can do. And some of this stuff that I talk about is kind of negative, and it's a downer, and I don't like to do it, but it's so important. It's so important. There's going to be speakers that are powerful, uplifting speakers, and I wish that I could have some kind of a topic that would fire you up and make you cheer. But this is serious enough, folks. These kids, I sat back there and I thought about the analogy of sending soldiers into battle without training them, uphill to fight. And that's what these kids are going into. This is serious, folks. If you want all of this to go away, and I was sitting back there visualizing this all falling down and rotting to the ground like an old barn, and 4-H being something that you read in history books, because that's where it's going if you don't act. If you don't step up and get involved in your community, this will be history. These kids are going to be fighting a battle when we're gone that they have no idea what they're up against. There are literally tens of thousands of these animal rights organizations. Tens of thousands. There's an operation called Project Counterglow that they have created. where any animal rights extremist psycho nut job can go onto the website and find your farm and your farm and your farm and drop a pin on your farm. So any of these animal rights extremists know where your farm is. This is what they're up against. So we as adults and parents have got to start talking to our legislators, our law enforcement officers, and we have to ask direct questions. Are these animal rights organizations introducing bills here? We want to know what they are. The next time you get on the internet, and next time you get online to do anything, to pay a bill, to get on Facebook, or any of this other garbage that's a waste of time, not paying the bills, but the social media part of it, you're getting on there, click on your government website. Take the time to do something that's really going to make a difference to help these kids in the future with this fight. Find out what's going on and get involved in this. You're going to be blown away when you research and see how many laws have been passed, how many bills have been introduced that are directly affecting the future of agriculture, farming, and hunting. When I walk through these displays, the barn over here with the displays and different things, I will end with a little bit of hope. I walked through the cattle barn, the hog farm, or the hog barn, and I saw what these kids are doing and the hard work. I saw a display in there with spent cartridges, a hunting display, and it showed spent cartridges, different size from 12 gauge down to 22 caliber. And I thought, you know what? There is still some hope. There is still some hope. Is that his? Stand up. Stand up. Look. Right there. That boy will be able to feed himself and defend himself and his family, but he'll be able to feed his family. That's what we have to do, folks. That's what it's all about, the future of the kids, but we have to act. We can't be sitting around anymore. It's not all feel-good stuff. God bless you.
John Boland. Thank you, John. I just want to give a little story about 2008. I was asked to come to California because 2008 Proposition 2 was on the ballot, and Proposition 2 was one of those animal rights initiatives that John was talking about that we got smoked. And if you don't know, Proposition 2 said that all chickens need more space in a cage when they're laying eggs. It didn't say how much more space. It didn't matter. It just said they need more space. And I was part of a group of about 25 that were trying to educate people that farmers know how to take care of their chickens best. If the chicken's not in an ideal environment or the chicken is stressed, what's the first thing that the chicken does? Lays fewer eggs or is sick. You can't afford to keep chickens if they're sick. You can't afford to keep chickens if they're not in an ideal stress level at all times. And we got smoked in every single county in California. And our message was in 2008, if you pass this, when this goes into effect, January 1st, 2015, egg prices will triple. And nobody cared. Nobody said anything because, well, we need to make sure these chickens are taken care of right. I could show you, and you could go search it right now. January 2015, you can find almost every major newspaper in the state of California writing stories that say, well, if we had known that our egg prices were going to triple, because they did the minute that Proposition 2 went into effect, we would have never voted for this. We were telling you that. But people weren't listening. And so really, the moral of that story is that we can have the facts, but unless we find a way to convey the facts to people on their time, on their dime, and when they're actually paying attention, it's just rhetoric. So we have to find that way. And the other thing I want to speak to that John just kind of glazed over and King just had to probably go weigh a pig. How many times do we think about our actions are being observed by our kids? If we roll over and don't stand up for the truth like Judy told us, we are teaching our kids a lesson, whether we know it or not. You know, something that she didn't point blank say that she told me she was going to say, which I think is huge. You know, she did not win either election in terms of the number of votes. but how many lives did she change because she was out there campaigning? I can personally speak to that because when she was running for Commissioner of Agriculture, she ran against Doug Goring. I've been friends with Doug Goring longer than what she ran against him, and I campaigned and tried to help her beat him. He became a better person because of her, and he's a better Commissioner of Agriculture because of her. It might be time you run against Doug again so that he takes it to another level, but beside the point, he improved. And I told him that in person the other day, by the way, in Bismarck. We're going to ask Karen Staley to come up here and not sing, but just share a word or two, because I just realized the stage guy hasn't really given her the voice during our airtime. So, ladies and gentlemen, the thoughts, the views, and the observations of Karen Staley on faith, family, and freedom.
Wow, this is my first time speaking. So, you know, so much has gone on the past. I could talk about a lot of subjects. The music business completely changed, sort of like the land grab. There used to be, songwriting used to be quite a good profession and lucrative. Now, it's pretty much all taken away. About 90% of songwriters have lost their jobs, totally. And, you know, music's pretty much free. So, I sold my catalog of hits back in 2010, and so I haven't had royalties since then. Well, you know, I never thought that I'd be going out to kill it and drag it in at that age, you know. But I've still been fortunate. I do a lot of corporate things and traveled. Well, when COVID came around, I looked at, and Greg and I had the same thing happen. I mean, I had my year laid out with some really nice things, and boom, overnight it was gone. And I'm not old enough to be on Social Security yet. I'm actually psyched about getting older so I could get on Social Security. So I did something that I never thought I'd do because of the pandemic. I mean, I really didn't have any choice. There was no place to play. There was no place to do anything. So I went on. They have, you know, special unemployment for gig workers, as they call it. So I got that. And then I just thought about it, and I went, well, I don't really feel bad about it. It's really just a rebate for all the taxes I'd paid for 60 years. So that ended in July. But, you know, a lot of us, I don't know what y'all went through, just used to, you know, working and taking care of yourself. And, you know, I think a lot of people, if anybody lost their jobs or anything like that, or cut down their jobs and had to be at home, you kind of went through a depression. You know, you kind of felt like you were doing nothing. And I've always been very opinionated, but sometimes I didn't follow through to do anything about being opinionated. So at home we started, and this is where the everybody can do something thing. I have been a prepper since 2012. The problem is I have tons of stuff that I don't know how to use at all, and I hope I never have to use it. So we have these prepper group at home, and we started out, it was called Max Freedom. And we jokingly called it the MFers. So, so then that actually got out of control, and then we broke down into smaller groups, and now we're in the Leapers Fork, the LFers. But it's been amazing to see just in the past year, and a lot of these people are a lot younger than me. All of them have kids, and there's about, 40 of us, and in the past year have just, you know, the momentum of everyone getting together about the mask, going to school boards, going to everything. It's been stunning what they've accomplished in just, you know, even the past 6 months. And all of us just got around. And I encourage you all to, if you don't have like a large community of people that, you know, feel like you do, whatever, you know, try to reach out, because we kind of have like little pods around town of all of us. So because probably, you know, if you're outspoken as me too, lost a lot of friends this year, you know, and your loved ones, you're just trying so bad, and you just don't understand why they're not seeing this, you know. It's just, I haven't seen my grandkids not my grandkids, my godkids in a year, because I'm not vaccinated, I'm not allowed to see them, and then they're just learning all this crap that, you know, they knew if they came to my house, they'd learn some other things. So I think part of it, my thing is with writing music and stuff like that, it's always to touch people's hearts or make them think or something like that. So you know, a lot of us went through some depression and, you know, of the family stuff. And, but all of us, I don't care, you know, I don't really have any other gifts other than writing. And I'm not in apocalypse shape. I mean, I should just go, run, save yourselves, you know. I'll limp after you. But, you know, as they say, you know, all these guys are like, yeah, we're going to go out there and the gravy seals. You know? Oh, yeah, we're going to. But I hope it never comes to that. But it is a very sobering time. I never dreamt in this short amount of time that people would just go into, you know, and people that you never dreamt. You know, a lot of Christian people, I'm like, did you not read that part in the Bible? Seriously. There's atheists that are like going, what? You know, they're understanding this. So I don't understand what it is. So we have, all we can do. And then originally when we were going around the country and stuff, I'm like, you know, we need to reach more people, you know. And then I'm like going, they're not going to listen. I mean, I just got to the point where after this long, if they don't have the information, they're not going to listen. So we need to edify and lift you guys up that do get it and to not give up. Because the beautiful thing about going around this country and seeing people is there's more than you think. There's a ton of people. And then that's just the people that show up. So there's probably 50% of people that didn't show up that believe like you do. And I started out with not a lot of hope, and now I have more hope because I've gotten to be friends with incredible people like Trent and Kevin and Robert David Steele, and people that are just not sitting around bitching. They're out here doing something. And this tour is not, I mean, we have fun with each other, but we pretty much do the show. We get on the bus, we go to the hotel, we get up early in the morning, we drive to the next place. We're not stopping at like the zoo and stuff like that. I would love to just go see the pigs and animals, but we're probably going to leave out of here in no time. So I didn't want to work with the animals in 4-H because I was just too sentimental. All my friends are sitting there crying, having to sell their little cow and everything. But I did get a blue ribbon because I sewed a seersucker smock. Thank you. Thank you. But I agree. And also, this tour also is just harkening me back to how, you know, I grew up and stuff. I mean, I'm very blessed with what I have and stuff now. But it's such a simpler time. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way. I mean in a good, solid way. It's just simpler. You know what matters, faith, family, and freedom. You're not all confused with all this other stuff out in the world. TV, turn it off. Turn it off. I'm telling you, there's nothing that you're going to learn. But, you know, we're just here also to just thank you for being warriors, you know, silent warriors, whatever. I mean, you're the type of people that do come to a place like this and volunteer. The little fair that I grew up, the Hookstown Fair in Beaver County, is having its 75th year this year. And they're just, every year, I don't know if anybody's, is it harder and harder every year to get this together, to just get people to do this? But it's so important. And like Trent was saying, the most important thing you can do for your kids is, you know, it's not what you say, it's what you do. And man, they are listening and looking at every little thing. When you think they're on their little deal, they're not paying attention. Shockingly, they are sometimes. They can double duty that stuff. So I just, you know, I'm just very thankful to be here, and it's just been great and hopeful to meet great guys like this, great men and women. Judy, you're awesome. I'm the only one on my bus. You got a full bus with me, and I'm very clean. Stay out of your way. Please come with us. So let's hear it for Judy again. Hello. Come on. And even our team, John and Jake, Soundman, and Rebecca, of course, the whole crew. It's just been awesome that we're all kind of one accord. We don't agree with everything that everybody else. You don't have to agree with everything. But we all agree that we need to be free to make our own decisions. We need to make family for. I didn't even know what sex was till I was in 8th grade. My God, 1st grade, that's just gross. And, you know, and I'm sorry I'm veering off here, but I just thought of something. You know, I've always been pro-life and stuff, too. And part of the reason I'm so pro-life is because, there's a lot of times there's incest and stuff, and then they'll go have an abortion. Well, the best thing you've had for checking if a kid has been sexually abused is them talking in adult terms about sex. So if they're now teaching them to talk to in adult terms about sex, you're never going to know, that's a sign. So all those, they seem like, little things, but they are just, reprogramming these children. I don't have any children, but I see it every day. And I mean, even when I went to college, I went to a Christian school. I'm like, really? This is a Christian school? It was like, there's just so many people that are lukewarm. And I'd rather you not be a Christian at all if you're going to be lukewarm. So that's what I've been, the Lord has just said, get off your butt, quit telling people what you know, and do what you know to do. So that's what I encourage you to do.
Karen Staley. Thank you, sweetheart. I did know about sex in first grade. Only because I had farm animals. Reminds me of the time when we were living in South Dakota. Libby was, our oldest is now 24. She's about 4 or 5 years old. And we were AIing cows all day. And Libby had been playing in the back of a pickup with a stuffed pig that she had. And after we'd been AIing cows for about 2 hours, I looked over and I said, Libby, what are you doing? We were breeding to a bull called Incognito, by the way. And I said, Libby, what are you doing? Breeding my piggy to Incognito? She had a used AI rod, and she was getting her done right there. But I got to tell you that the problem with this sex education is they're in first and second grade teaching kids that maybe you or should have been a female instead of male. It's all this ridiculous stuff instead of teaching the real sentiment of sex itself. What, Karen? That's the stupidest thing you've ever said. You should identify as Karen Staley. It doesn't get any better than that. I've gotten to be, Robert did one really, really good thing for me. Well, many good things for me. He's created this opportunity, and we're all proud to be a part of it. But it's very clear, and I've come back to it a couple of times, but the attack on the community. I'm not going to tell you I don't understand what goes on the fair board. Amber, I know. You got the Hatfields, you got the McCoys, you got people who want to do things in a new way. There's people that, we haven't ever done it that way. Well, we got to make progress. King's moving. We got to move him into the next level, but we can't afford that. We've had those divisions in rural communities, and understand it happens in church, it happens in school, and I'm not trying to create this false utopian notion that it's the perfect life, but it is a community. And when the shit hits the fan, which it's going to, the community will have everybody's back. And I started talking about Robert because he introduced me to a guy named J.C. Cole. And I have J.C. Cole on my Roll Route radio program every Wednesday, and he's so enlightening. He scares the crap out of you because he lived in Lafayette for 18 years and witnessed the fall of the Soviet Union. And he walked through how that happens and how it takes place. And then the next step draws the parallels to where we are today. I was speaking in Bismarck in March at the Lignite Energy Council, and we've been demonizing lignite and coal for how long? Coal is a resource that we have. It is the most efficient way to produce electricity. We're moving in policy into all of these arenas and cars and everything else with more and more electricity needs, and yet we're shutting down power plants left and right. We have 9 electric grids in the United States that control 100% of the electricity. How vulnerable is that? And February 22nd, that week, you probably had a small rolling blackout that week as well, but we were 22 below I know you think in Nebraska we never get cold in Pembina County, but we get cold in Nebraska, just maybe not as long. We're 22 below for 3 or 4 days that week, and that was the week that we had the rolling blackout. And we had the rolling blackout not because we had a problem in Nebraska, but Texas had a serious issue. And what nobody reported is why Texas had an issue with electricity the third week. What they said was, well, there was an uncharacteristic storm and it increased. No, that's not true. What happened was that Texas, due to poor public policy, actually created a dependency, or created 34% of their electricity from wind and solar, which everybody who knows and understands electricity said, don't go more than 30% or you will create problems. And they did it anyway and want to continue to go farther. And so the blackout was caused because Texas, even though they were told don't go more than 30%, went to 34%. And when their electric grid shut down, everybody in the northern part of the Great Plains had to use less electricity so we could ship it down to them. Who knew that we were all tied that closely together and that vulnerable? And a guy who he spoke at the Lake Night Energy Council, the same meeting I was at. He's from Texas, and he said we were 4 minutes from a complete shutdown of the electric grid in Texas. And he said, don't misunderstand me. It's not like flipping the switch and you just wait a couple hours and turn it back on. He said it probably would have taken a year, a full year, to get it back. He also said at that meeting that we see this summer there will be some severe heat all throughout the United States. And that will accelerate the demand for electricity and put more pressure on this grid than what we can handle because of poor policies. You know, when it comes back, and I'm going to introduce Kevin in a little bit, and he comes from much more of a urban environment than Hamilton, North Dakota, Newark, New Jersey. I think there's more people there, right? But we have really taken for granted what we have in our part of the world. You know, and we had the community, and we have the water tower. Where's the water tower in Cavalier? How does the water tower work? Do you know that that's not just so that people driving through know what town they're in? It actually creates a system where it takes very little energy to pump the water up there. You've got a reservoir that the water is available, and then it comes on demand. And I assure you, there's some public water system that's been taking place in Pembina County, and somebody come to you and said, you really ought to go to this public water instead of relying on what you've been relying on. And it's happened every time you go in and you pave the streets of the rural areas, and then what do they want next? Well, we got to have public water. We got to have water running through there. And then what happens after all of that takes place? You start developing the urbanization that we're worried about creating. Because the people move out into the country because they don't want neighbors. They want to be able to pee in their own backyard without somebody watching them. And then all of a sudden you got 12 guys peeing in the backyard and you created what you left. And it creates a risk. And we've had demonization of things that are vitally important. Number one right now seems to be the cow. For whatever reason, people want to demonize the cow. Do we really understand what the cow does? The cow consumes that cellulose material that you and I, no matter how much blue cheese dressing we have, we cannot eat that little red clover. Okay? But yet these ruminant animals created by God eats all of the stuff that we can't eat and then turn it into the most nutrient-dense food substance on the planet. How important is that? 74% of the world's land mass is not suitable for growing crops for people, but it will grow cellulose material that ruminant animals can convert into not only nutrient-dense food, 128 life-saving pharmaceuticals that the medical community uses, stearic acid that makes every single tire. There's so many uses of animal agriculture in improving human lives, and yet we want to demonize the cow. So let's just think about this in the big picture. What feeds the plants? Carbon dioxide. We've demonized carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. It's bad for you. Oh, really? Tell that to the plant that relies upon carbon dioxide for its nutrition. In fact, it's documented the small increase that we've had in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has actually increased plant growth. So the more animals you have, the more plants you require. The more plants you have, the more CO2 that's required. It's what God called the cycle of life. And now we have people that want to pull one sector out of the cycle of life and tell you that it's better. Oh, we don't need the cows. We got crickets. We got Bill Gates heavily invested in crickets. And Kelly yesterday was in a store in Kearney, Nebraska, and she sent me a picture of cricket meal that's now available for you to take home and make a casserole. No, thank you. But the purpose of the cow is not just to provide us nutrition. It's to help the ecosystem and the entire cycle of life. A friend of mine who's a pork producer from southeast Iowa just a moment ago sent me a text asking me a question, and it was clearly a message from God saying, Trent, you're supposed to share this, because I have had this saying that I came up with that explains everything that we know about in life. And it really leads into everything John talked about. It leads into everything Judy talked about. It leads into everything that Karen talked about and everybody in front of us. The failure to understand how life works. Everything lives. Everything dies. And death with a full purpose, or death with a purpose, gives full meaning to life. You see, the reason that people throw money into these animal rights organizations is that you capture that sentimental value. And the reason Karen didn't show a pig at the county fair is she's worried about eating Wilbur. Well, Wilbur needs to be eaten because that's his contribution to improving the cycle of life. And we all hope that we can just find that way to be a key component to improving something that we have done. Is making a difference to improve life. And that's the purpose of the animal. And then you look at this demonization of diesel. We're in the state of California. They're trying to ban diesel. And again, J.C. Cole taught me. 1 gallon of diesel replaces 500 man-hours in food production. So if you don't want the farmer using diesel to produce your food, you better sharpen your hoe. Think about that. 1 gallon of diesel replaces 500 man-hours of food production. In 1900, it required 10 acres of land to produce enough food to feed one person for a year. 5 acres to actually produce the food. But how many tractors did we have burning diesel in 1900? 0. So what did we use to till the soil and transport everything? Horses and mules. It took 5 acres of land to produce enough food to feed the horses and the mules. So it took 10 acres of land to produce enough food to feed one person for a year in 1900. Who wants to tell me how many acres of land it takes in 2021? 1/3 of an acre. 1/3 of an acre. We've been losing 2 million acres of prime farmland in the United States each and every year to urbanization, paving it over with concrete, condos, and consumers. And we still have a plentiful supply of food if we keep the entire infrastructure in check and don't play political games with viruses like COVID. We have the available food. It's a distribution that's the problem. And the reason that we have the available food is because we've improved the overall efficiency. We produce more with less. And that's the message that King just told us. He wants to be a part of the improvement in the next generation. If we just get people and politics out of the way and allow technology to take its course, we can feed this planet with however many people are on it. It doesn't matter. And the only thing I disagree with on Judy is that she said this vaccine. I can tell you all day long about this vaccine. It's not a vaccine. It's a jab. Because vaccines, I've used vaccine. I've actually cared for 1 million my wife has actually cared for 1 million farm animals in our lifetime. Okay? And so we know the most important thing about the farm animal. Reduce the stress and the animal will take care of itself. That's my only job, is to minimize the stress, prevent disease, make sure the nutrition is right, make sure that the weather at 25 below and the animal is still going to be comfortable. That's what King has learned, is all about reducing the stress, and everything else God had in place. Just let it take care of itself. And think about how much stress has been induced by politics in the past 2 years. And the only thing you have to worry about with COVID is your immune system functioning properly. If your immune system is functioning properly, you got nothing to worry about. You got it made in the shade. In fact, it reminds me that we got people putting that hand sanitizer on your nose, your face every 2 minutes. What could be more dangerous than killing the bacteria? Okay, those horses that were in that horse show today, King, another question for you, give you a chance to look like the superstar you are. What did every horse, by the way, King, why were they all young ladies riding horses? There were no young men in the horse show? Anyway, were you watching the horse show? There was a lot of good-looking girls over there, King. You should have been watching the horse show. So when you take the saddle off the horse, it's all sweaty from running the poles or the barrels. What's every horse do if it's not tied on a halter? Lays down and rolls in the dirt. Why does it do that? Why does a horse, every time you take it over and rinse it off with water, go roll in the dirt the minute you turn it loose in the pen? And you're looking at it like, Samson, what the hell are you doing? I just washed you off. It's a natural instinct of the horse to go inoculate itself because you just disrupted the bacterial production that the horse naturally has to protect itself. And so here we are, rubbing hand sanitizer all over our arms, our face, and our food, and disrupting the natural bacterial cycle to build our immune system and protect ourselves. That's part of the stress on the immune system that's, I believe, intentionally been brought about to create this level of stress. So, at the end of the day, we need to know where our community stands. I think that we've got to bring our food systems back to more of a community base. You just think about the old days of the branding. You know, still, I don't know, if East River we do this, and West River we still have the rope and drag brandings. And who does that? The entire community comes together, works together to get it done. There's nothing like a community event and the food the women make at a branding. You go there, you get dirty and you get kicked and you get stabbed with the vaccine yourself, or you castrate calves and cut yourself just so that you can eat the food the women made when you're done. And the liquid wisdom that's provided afterwards, 12 ounces at a time. Don't let the people who live far away from here continue to attack the community and create division within the community. That, at the end of the day, is our strength, and that comes from above, as we've been talking about in every single presentation. With that said, here's a guy who understands everything of what I just said because he's been with us for now 67 days. Did you know you were on a 67-day tour? You're not even halfway there, my friend. From Newark, New Jersey, literally bringing rural and urban America together, has become just this tremendous kindred spirit in this trip. Kevin Jenkins, founder of the Urban Health Alliance.
Good evening, everyone. I hate following him. But I got to tell you, I learned so much from him when he gives us the history of, the land and being a rancher, and it's just amazing. Every time I sit like a kid, I'm sitting over there and I'm like, man, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, I have to send his tape to somebody so we can really figure out what we're doing. But he brought up something, though, that I thought was very important. He said, cycle of life. Cycle of life. I mean, I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. I didn't even want to speak today because after Judy talked, I was done. I was like, today, she captured it all. I think she saw something, and I think she's seeing something that's happening in the world, how honest she was about her courage. And, and I talk all the time about we have to find our God courage. We have to find something deep inside of us to get us to understand that, faith, family, and this country is the most important thing right now at this moment, at this time. And this whole notion about the cycle of life, the mere fact that somebody wants to be your God. The mere fact that somebody wants to take your ability to love away from you, mask you in shame, distort reality so you can be trapped in fear. They're now screwing what God gave us, what that cycle of life is. I'm going to always remember that, Trent, because that's what's happening right now. We're being fully challenged. Are we prepared to fight for our cycle of life, fight for our children, fight for our humanity, fight for our country, fight for our land, fight for the things that we know that are true? And for the last year and a half, and long before that, they've been prepping us because they want to control our cycle of life. They want to be our God. I mean, what kind of people are they? But the question is, what kind of people are we? We sat back quiet last year. We didn't say much. We kept our doors closed. We kind of turned our eyes away from each other. We lost our connection, which impacts what? The cycle of life. We trapped our kids in fear. We turned on TV every day, and we soaked in all that propaganda and all those lies. Now, some of you say you didn't, but in your heart, you did. You still was paying attention because they had us really fooled. We all thought we were going to die, and even the people that were telling us the truth, they censored them. So when you talk about the cycle of life, that's what they're doing when they censor us. They're censoring us. They're saying that if you talk about the country, you're a terrorist. If you talk about God, you're a terrorist. If you talk about even working and owning and building something, you're un-American. And if you don't buy their garbage every day about this injection, this biological death injection, you're anti-American and you're not patriotic. And by the way, you are killing your loved ones. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? No, I mean, that's what they said. To breathe, you are killing your loved ones. To hug, you are killing your loved ones. Oh, and by the way, you cannot go into the nursing homes. You can't go to your grandma's house. You can't go to your grandfather's house or any of your parents' house because you will be responsible for killing them. It gets back to the cycle of life. We know that we're going to lose some of our loved ones, but we didn't want our loved ones to be murdered by the health industry. We didn't want that. We don't want that. So this year for me, and this tour for me, is really interesting because when I first got on the tour, I said, how are me and Robert going to get along? You know what? We get along because we have the same fight. We have the same fight. We're fighting the same enemy. And this whole race thing that you're hearing all day long on that TV, that propaganda tube, it's all about separating us, and we should never allow it to happen. One of the things I've learned on this tour is we all have the same story, and we all have the same enemies. And it's not because you're black, and it's not because you're white, because there's a group of people out there believe that you don't have any value as human beings, that you have no value, that you should not exist unless they give you permission to exist. And then when you stand up for the country, the first thing they do is they say, we have to lock those people up. When did anybody sitting in this audience ever would believe that to even fight to be a patriot, to fight for the republic, that you would be called a terrorist by the people in this country that don't care about you? Right now, I'm standing in front of you and I'm a terrorist, and I love it. I love it. You know why? Because I am not going to allow those people to define me. So when they say I'm anti-something, I say I'm anti-anything that's against humanity. When they say I'm a super spreader, you know what I tell them? I'm a super spreader of truth. When they say I'm a terrorist, I will fight every day, every second, every minute to protect my family, to protect your family. And this whole notion that you're losing friends every day because of a jab is absolutely ridiculous. They were never your friends anyway. They were never your friends. And you know, and sometimes I think we waste a lot of time. I forget, sometimes I'll say it right, sometimes I'm saying it wrong. Casting your pearls on swine. Because anybody that believes that it is a right to turn your body over to a corporation to be experimented on, turn your children over to a corporation to be experimented on. And these people believe that they can take our human rights away from us. Never mind civil rights, but they're talking about taking away your human right to body sovereignty, to medical freedom, to religious freedoms. And when people talk about the Constitution, sometimes I have good days about it and bad days, but we've allowed them to take our Constitution away from us. But we're now all citing it like it's some poetic thing. Why was the Constitution created? Why was the Declaration of Independence created? It was to give us a sense of freedom. And I think we all forgot about it. At Mount Rushmore, everybody was up there, everybody was happy. Everybody was saying, we got to save America. Well, go do it. Stop turning on your TV and picking up the papers every day, listening to these horror stories without taking action to save your life. I always try to make you feel a little uncomfortable when I'm speaking to you because we should feel uncomfortable. Because look what they're doing to our children. That's why I was very happy to see children up here. Every place I go, I take pictures with kids to remind me and to remind the world and to remind our communities that's why we do what we do. That's why we love the way we love. That's why we take care and protect, because our children are the lifeline to our life cycle. To our life cycle. I used to go to church on Sundays and hear my preacher talk about Jesus Christ. They all closed down the churches, zoomed in Jesus, and then they opened up the churches to sell the devil's product. I would never go to those churches again. Ever. Never. Because they're not believers. How many in this audience believe in Christ? Okay, now, if you do, what was the one thing that the Son, God's Son, did for us? He died on Calvary for us. The question is, are we ready to die on Calvary for our families, for our country, for our communities? Are we prepared to do that? Or are we going to turn it over to somebody else? Give it to somebody else to do for us. Because I want everybody in this audience to know, no one's coming to rescue you. I want you to be clear on that. No politician is coming to rescue you. No faith leader is coming to rescue you. No one. We have to rescue ourselves from these global tyrants. They're going to control our food. They're going to control how we bank. They're going to control how we educate our kids. They're going to control how we travel. They're going to control everything because we don't believe that we have enough God courage to fight back. And that's what's important, because that's what our children need to see. Our children need to see that we are prepared to fight for them so they can lead us into the future. So as a black American, I always hear, people talk about critical race theory. Well, I have a critical race theory for you. I have one. Stop using their language. You are not my white friend. You're not my Jewish friend. You're not my Greek friend. You are my friend. We use their language. We're all racist because we use it. We have used it. And they think they're very clever. They're saying if we can keep them trapped in that narrative, we can finish the job. If we can keep them thinking that they're different, well, we can complete the job. That's why every day they bombard you every day with different things that you're discussing. I'm saying stop discussing that and start discussing how we win back our country. Because we gave it up to our elected officials. Listen, let me tell you something. I live with an elected official. She happens to be one of the good ones. Because I wouldn't tolerate it. I wouldn't be married to her. I'm quite sure she wouldn't be married to me. But I'm going to tell you something. The government has abandoned us. They're not coming to your rescue. Now, you might have a couple of them that might believe in country and God and family and faith, but at the end of the day, they're not burning down that building with you. They're not with you. I'm sorry. I am absolutely sorry. Anybody tells you they're with you and they're not taking you and joining hands with you to go back and take care of that government, they don't care about you. They're lying to you. I want you to understand that. You might like them. You might board them to dinner a couple of times. They might pat you in the back. They might even work with you occasionally. Any elected official in this country that's not joining hands with us to go take back our government, that's my enemy. Might not be yours, but that's my enemy. Because you know why? This is the problem I'm having with the government narrative. Who forms the government? We do. Who finances the government? We do. Who votes them in? We do. But we're now sheep. We're asking them for permission to free us from the bondage that the tyrants have in store for us. And that's a fact. And we're still running in those buildings expecting them to help us. They already showed you how they value you. And just because you have a governor at the moment that might sound reasonable, you might not have a governor that might not sound reasonable next year. So what are you going to do about it? You got to take back your life. You have to take back your cycle of life. You have to prepare your children, protect your children. Find your God courage. Do something, find something deep in you to understand that this is for real. That's why this tour is so important. I mean, what's the odds of sitting at my dining room table last year, and there's a bigger story about that, but I'm traveling all around the country talking to, the greatest people I believe on the planet, which are Americans. Not because you're black, not because you're white. I know your story. You know my story. I know your story. I know your story. You know my story. We got the same story. Different language, but the same exact story, the same exact enemy, the same exact people doing the same exact thing to all of us. And guess what? We believe that we're separate. We are not separate. We are God's children. We are bound to be truthful and loving to each other. We are bound. That is our duty. That is our duty, is to love, find hope in each other, and protect ourselves from the people that are doing the work every day to take our human rights away from us. We have to get our sword out, our spiritual sword out, and we have to fight these people. It is time to fight. Some of you are uncomfortable with that word, but it is time to fight for our lives. And please do not allow these people any further to disconnect you from people around this country, because everybody, listen, people are talking all around this country. The heartland is alive and well. I tell people, if you want to know this country, you go on a bus and you go into these towns and you listen to what they're saying. I tell my friends all the time, you have no idea what you're talking about. You don't. We are one family. We are one tribe. We are one community. My grandkids will never go to a public school again. I will never walk in a store that says vaccinated, unvaccinated. I will never do any of the things that discriminate against humans. I will not eat your food. I will not shop in your supermarkets. I will not eat with you. If you are against what I believe is the truest source of life, God and family and community, you're out. You're out. You're out. But they keep us distracted. One day is critical race theory. The other day is this. The other day is that. And we buy it. We all get trapped in it. But taking back your school board is essential. Running those government officials that are completely lied to you and abandoned to you, that's when they're going to know. See, elected officials only respond when there's something they're going to lose. That's the only time they're willing to negotiate. And we still negotiate with them wrong. But this is our moment now, This is our David and Goliath moment. This is our defining, it's really funny. I thought about Martin Luther King the other day, because I think about him often. When I was young, I didn't like Martin Luther King. I was well read as a kid, but I thought he was passive. He was not passive. He was one of the most strongest individuals I know in my life. That man was brilliant. But he loved God and he loved people. He loved this country. His whole mission was to unify us, not to destroy us. They take his words and they manipulate them. They bastardize them. They destroy it. He was one of the most powerful men on this planet. He will be fighting right here with me right now against them. He spoke about them. The military-industrial complex, the government. He said, they are our enemy. But we didn't understand it. I didn't understand it until I got older. One day I was reading a book on a plane. I was, my God, this man is saying everything that I'm saying now without me even reflect. It just comes through you because God will get you and grab you by your feet and your head, and he would say, you better stand up for my people. You better stand up for all of them. And that's how I feel. Everybody on this tour is on a spiritual journey. It is a war between the conscious and unconscious. We have to understand that this is right now, our spiritual battle. You got to find it in you. You got to find your God courage. You better find it. You better open up that Bible and ask God to speak to you and guide you, because right now he wants us to fight for all the things, everything that he's given us. Are we willing to do that? Are you willing to do it? Because I'm here. That's why I'm on this tour. To join hands with you, to lock hands with you, to tell you that you are my brother, you are my sister, you are my friend, you are my tribe. Because that's what my grandmother taught me. That's what my parents taught me. And I will not use their language. I will fight them every day. I will walk this earth. I will get on this bus. I will get on a plane. I will do anything, everything to bring this country together. Because that's all we have. That's all we have. And you know, I normally would ask people to stand up at certain points because I do this all the time. In certain situations, I kind of reverse it a little bit. But I got to tell you something. You, all of you in this audience, better start raising your voices. Because when you clap and it's soft, I say they're not ready for prime time. When I say God, courage, and y'all looking at me like I'm crazy, y'all ain't ready. When I say your children, you know, you're like, oh, well, my babies. You don't know what they have in store for your children, do you? You don't really know. You think critical race theory is it? No. No, no, no. They know that if they can break your child, destroy our seniors, they can now do what? Break the cycle of life for all humanity. All humanity. So I want you to stand up for me, please. I want you to stand up because, you know, I think sometimes when I come into these places and we talk, all I think about is the time I used to walk in my grandmother's church and they would be singing and I'd be walking down that aisle and I'm like, can I get out of here? And they'll start singing that gospel song. Guess who'll be the first one crying? Every time I hear great gospel music, the first guy in the audience is crying. My wife like, you're crying, I'm going to be crying for the whole hour. Because it reminds me of what my ancestors had to go through. Coming in the bottom of a ship across the Atlantic, coming to a country that might not understood how to treat human beings, but finding something deep inside of them to cross another river to freedom. But in crossing that river to freedom, they came back and freed everyone that they thought was necessary. They tried to build community. They tried to build family. They tried to build places to have faith. But guess what they did? Even in that horror, they fought for this flag. They sacrificed themselves for that flag. And when I was younger, I would normally say, why would you do that? Because they said, even though they came here in horror, they knew that that land, that place, that second where they were was highly valuable, and they knew that if they can keep this country together, maybe we can build a better country for all of us. Because my ancestors died for this flag. They were commoditized for this flag. So when people turn their back on this flag, I get pissed. When they can't stand up for the national anthem, I get pissed because they don't know the history of this country. They don't know the history of my people. When you see black people doing all of that nonsense on TV, they don't know the history about black Americans at all in this country. They are paid race hustlers on both sides, and we got to call them what they are. See, we got to stop being so polite. If you are a black person, a black doctor, a black elected official, a black reverend, and you're selling the devil's product, you are modern day slave catcher. If you are a doctor in the medical fields telling us it's all right to take a failed biological experiment to change our DNA and make us less human and disconnect us from God, you are a war criminal. You better start calling these people what they are. That's the only way they're going to listen to you. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes and take a deep breath. So close your eyes, please. I want everybody to close your eyes. and take a deep breath. I want you to inhale God, and I want you to exhale fear. And I want you to keep your eyes closed. And I want you to think about what kind of country you want for your children and want for you tomorrow morning. Tomorrow. Just stay right there. What kind of country do you want for your children and your family tomorrow? Okay. I tell you that because if you can't visualize the kind of country you want, that's not driven by, I call it the tech bandits, the education cartel, the banking industry, the ones that are working against you every day to take everything away from you, and you're not prepared to start that new cycle of life tomorrow, shame on you. Shame on you. Now, the last thing I want you to do, because I want to make sure I'm talking to humans, I do this all the time. You have to hug each other for me. Please hug each other. Y'all hug each other. Y'all hug each other. And I'm going to tell you why. You know. Hey, did you hug each other back there? Why y'all still not hugging? Hey, wait a minute. You don't get away. Now I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why I do it every place I go. Because they tried to take it away from us. See, they know when you hug each other, you connect. When you hug each other, you find God's curse. When you hug each other, you understand what love is. When you hug each other, you now understand that this is what they tried to take away from us. Look at that. Look at that. See? They tried to take our humanity away from us. So guess what? You all talk about spiritual warfare. Well, are you ready for the war? Oh, Trent, I got to go. Are you ready for the war? You want the world to know that. The world needs to know that this country is prepared to fight because they're all looking to us. We are the beacon of hope for the world. We brag about it all the time, but now they really are looking at us. Guess what? That's why in London, 4 times they had millions of people. Well, where are our millions of people? You know why they know why I'm going to leave. You know why y'all don't do it yet? Because when they went to Washington on January the 6th, they said anybody there was a terrorist and the FBI is going to investigate. They're using the government to control our voices. Well, we should have another 2 million people there. That's what they're doing. They're making you afraid to stand up because they're going to use the government that you form, the government that you pay for, the government that you elect against you. And then when people did go to January the 6th, they locked up the grandfather. Guess what? I heard nothing from you. We got to stand up for those people. Are you ready to stand up? Have a nice evening.
Kevin Jenkins. After all of that, there's only one thing to say. One nation under God, putting people above politics. Arise USA 2021, and it's happening in Pembina County, North Dakota. Karen Staley is going to take us home.
Hello. Let me see you right over at the table there, sitting on hand for the lead. Y'all, we sat back way too long, let the police push us around. They tell us what we can and cannot do, think they walk on holy ground. Aren't you tired of keeping your thoughts to yourself, hoping that the world would change? Well, it's time we stood up for what we hold dear before they go down in flames. That's faith, family, and freedom. The precious things that give our lives meaning. Now more than ever, Lord, we need it. Faith, family, and freedom. It's gotta be now, 'cause time is passing. don't want no war. There's three things on this green earth still worth fighting for.